Hello students. So in this module we are going to read the poem An Elementary School Classroom in a Slum by Stephen Spender. So firstly, let me tell you what exactly this poem is about. The poem An Elementary Classroom in a Slum, published in 1964, resonates the political stance of the poet Stephen Spender, who was strongly affected by the ideals of socialism. The poem voices out his views regarding the paradox of teaching children in a slum and the policy of the government in regard to education. The poet presents a true picture of the life of the school children living in the slum of Tyrolese Valley of Austrian Alpine province. The poem also highlights the challenges and plight of these children by projecting vivid images and appropriate expression. Tone of the poem. The tone of the poem is somber and philosophical. The theme revolves around the profound problem that affects our society at large. The universal gap between rich and the poor is highlighted. It also highlights the irony of the life in the 21st century, where the world has made so many advancements, yet an atmosphere of gloom prevails. Let's check the explanation part. The first stanza of the poem reads like this: Far, far from gusty waves, these children's faces, like rootless weeds, the hair torn round their pallor, the tall girl with her weighed down head, the paper seeming boy with rat's eyes, the stunted, unlucky air of twisted bones reciting a father's gnarled disease, his lesson from his desk at back of the dim class, one unnoted, sweet and young. His eyes live in a dream of squirrel's game in tree room other than this. Now let's check the meaning of the difficult words, children, first. Gusty waves here refers to breezy winds. Pallor, pale or dull face. Stunted, not fully grown due to malnutrition. Gnarled, knotted or rough. Weeds, unwanted plants that grow on their own. Paper seeming boy, very thin boy, as thin as a sheet of paper. Air, successor. Literary devices used here. I have already marked the words or the phrases. Repetition is used here. Use of far to stress on the distance. Far, far, it is being used twice. Simile, children are compared with rootless weeds. So in red, it's written here like rootless weeds. Metaphor, the first metaphor that is being used here is the paper seeming boy. And the second one is with rat's eyes. Let's check the explanation, children. The poem describes the children who study in an elementary school, which is set up in a slum area. So you can understand after reading the first stanza that the first stanza is talking about or giving a description of the students who are there in the classroom. How those students look. The poet says that the faces of children are dull and without any energy, unlike other kids of their age. The poet compares them to the unwanted weeds which grow on their own in the field. Their hair is not neatly done. It falls on their pale faces as if they have been torn apart. Then he describes a tall girl who seems to be burdened by poverty. Her head is bent, maybe because of tiredness or shame. There's another boy who's so weak and thin that he has been compared to a sheet of paper. The boy's eyes reflect hunger and anxiety. Then he describes another student who is unlucky because he inherited a disease from his father, due to which he has a deformed body. This disabled boy is sitting on his bench and is reciting his lesson from there only. At the back of the class, there is another boy in dim dark area. He is a small looking boy. He is not visible to the poet as he was sitting in darkness. The poet could see his eyes, which were bright and full of a dream. He was not paying attention to the class. It seemed as if he was rather interested in playing with the squirrels in the tree house. Let's check line by line explanation of the first stanza. Far, far from the gusty waves. Now children, you can see here that the repetition of the word far is basically intensifying the effect or the distance that these children are much far away from that gusty wave. Now, gusty wave is not only referring to the fresh air coming from ocean, which only the people who belong to rich strata or high strata they only can enjoy, but this gusty waves also refers to the privileges and opportunities which children of rich families enjoying, but these poor children living in slum area are away from it, far away from it. So far from resembling the strong and forceful waves of the ocean, the faces of the children look like rootless weed with their hair torn around their pale, malnourished faces. A simile like rootless weeds is used to describe the manner in which society perceives the children of the poor class. These children do not have any family background or any social security to help them grow in one place, and that is why they are compared to rootless weeds. Rather, these children are tossed about and are treated as unwanted elements, like weeds are unwanted plants, they grow on their own, by a large section of society. Now let's have a look at the description of the students in the first stanza. Now there is a girl, the tall girl with her weighed down head. A tall girl stands with her bowed down head, far from being lively and energetic. She stands with her head weighed down, possibly due to the burden or shame of poverty. The girl is definitely not happy. Then the second child in the class is the paper seeming boy with rat's eyes. Now there is another image of a paper seeming boy with rat's eyes. Metaphor is used here to describe the unfortunate kid who is so thin that he looks as if made of paper, providing an indication of starvation and malnourishment. The paper seeming boy with rat's eyes, his eyes are defensive and scared like a rat. His eyes might be searching food like rats. So it is basically referring to prospect for survival. That is why the eyes of this boy are compared to the eyes of a rat, because this boy is not only insecure but he is anxious also, and he's paper seeming, he is malnourished, and he is looking for food. The stunted unlucky air of twisted bones, reciting a father's gnarled disease, his lesson from his desk. The meaning of this line is, there is another student. He is the victim of a genetic disorder. And see how beautifully the poet has explained it here, that this boy is an unlucky heir. Why is he unlucky? Because usually children, they inherit the property or the name or the fame of their parents. But this child has inherited a disease of twisted bones from his father, which has disfigured him and it has made him physically challenged. So Spender, the poet, has used the word reciting here to show that in addition of studying, the child is not only reciting the chapter or the lesson which he is reading, but he is also reciting the disease which he has inherited from his father. At back of the dim class, one unnoted sweet and young, his eyes live in a dream of squirrels game in tree room other than this. Now there is another child who is entirely different from all these students who are there in the classroom, and he is sitting at back of the dim class. Now here, see children, there is a contrast again. The poet says that though the child is dreaming, but dim class, there is the darkness in the class. So there is some hope in the eyes of, perhaps there is some hope in the eyes of this child, this sweet looking child, but dullness, the darkness of the class is going to envelop that dream, and perhaps that child would also end up losing all his hopes. So let's check it again. This student represents both a ray of hope and a shiver of confusion. It is unclear whether he is dreaming of a life he may achieve or has lost his mind to the squirrel's game. These two conflicting interpretations expose the student's bleak future in that slum. Now let's read the second stanza. It says, on sour cream walls, donations, Shakespeare's head, cloudless at dawn, civilized dome riding all cities, bellied, flowery Tyrolese valley, open-handed map, awarding the world its world. And yet for these children, these windows, not this map, their world, where all their future is painted with a fog, a narrow street sealed in with a lead sky, far, far from rivers, capes, and stars of words. Let's check the word meanings. Sour, unpleasant. It here refers to the color of sour cream, off-white. Donations, things given or received in charity. Dawn, early morning, sunrise. Civilized dome, tall buildings, referring to the progress and civilization of the world of rich people. Tyrolese Valley, a beautiful valley in Austria. Sealed, shut or locked. Lead, here lead refers to dark future of kids or the students living in slum. Capes, a large piece of land that sticks out into the sea from the coast. Literary devices, children. Metaphor, sour cream walls. Walls are described to be dull as sour cream. Now, stanza 2. Let's check the explanation. The classroom walls have a faded, negligent appearance as they haven't been painted for a long time. In other words, these children inhabit a world which is dreary and depressing. On the walls are displayed the donations given by people, such as the bust of Shakespeare with the background of a clear sky at the time of sunrise. The walls also have scenic pictures of Tyrolese Valley with its beautiful flowers presenting a world of heavenly splendor. Apart from all this, the walls also have a map revealing the world, but the world the children view from the classroom's window is foggy and harsh. It represents a dark and bleak future with no hope for improvement. Their eyes can only view a narrow road which is enclosed by a dull sky. The poet suggests that these children are trapped in a hopeless situation and their reality is far removed from the literary world which glistens with the beauty of nature, such as the rivers, the high land jutting from the sea, and is full of glorious words. Now let's check line by line explanation, children. On sour cream walls, donations. Sour cream walls are referring to dingy, dull atmosphere of the class. Donations, what are the donations that the students or the school has got? Shakespeare's head. Now, see children, these donations like Shakespeare's bust or Shakespeare's head, it represents the teaching of concepts and ideas that the students are not able to relate to. Why aren't they able to relate to it? Because of their impoverished nature. The children are so poor, malnourished, tired and hopeless that they don't have the luxury of leisure to study works of Shakespeare, Now, cloudless at dawn. In contrast to the street of this slum which is covered with lead. Now children, lead is referring to a dull future. Now the future of these children, it is covered with lead because the entire slum is covered with lead. Okay, so their future is bleak here. And in contrast to that, the Shakespeare's head, and at the back of that head is cloudless sky, a clear, bright sky. Civilized dome riding all cities. Now these civilized domes are again setting a harsh contrast against the setup of slum. So civilized domes are referring to tall, beautiful buildings which have covered the entire city. Belled flowery Tyrolese Valley. Now beautiful Tyrolese Valley blooming with flowers. So you can see here that these donations which are there on the wall, whether it is Shakespeare's head or civilized dome, picture of civilized dome or picture of Tyrolese Valley, all this is setting a complete contrast to the sour cream walls, to the dingy or dull atmosphere of the classroom or the condition of the students. And yet for these children, these windows, not this map, their world. And that is why the poet says, for these slum children, these windows are their world or their map. Why these windows are their map? Because they can relate to the atmosphere which is outside this window, and that is their narrow or dingy slum. So they can, whenever they look outside that window, they see poverty and misery outside it. So that is why this window is their world, not that map. The window that map is providing, the word that map is providing to them, that is not their word, because that word is quite away from their reach. It is beyond their reach. And that is why the windows of the classroom are the true maps that they can relate to, not the open-handed map which has been hanged on the wall of the classroom. A narrow street sealed in with a lead sky. So now here, narrow street sealed in with a lead sky refers to poverty, hunger, hopelessness, and the fact that they are cut off from that these slum children are cut off from the rest of the world. That is being expressed by these phrases. Far, far from rivers, capes, and stars of words. It refers to the grim reality that these children are far, far from the romantic image of the river, the valley, and scenes which are created by hollow words of poets. Okay, children, so I'm winding up today's session here only. The stanzas which are left, we'll be discussing that in the next module. I hope you must have understood the stanzas that were discussed today. In case of any queries, send that to me. Let's have a quick recap of the stanza that we discussed today. Poet Stephen Spender, published in 1964. The theme of the poem is social injustice and inequality, highlighting the gap between rich and poor. Key points. The first one, the first stanza of the poem depicts the condition of the students in an elementary classroom of a slum, and the second stanza gives a vivid description of the dull and dreary classroom. Okay, children, so now here is the assignment for the day. The questions given here are based on the stanzas that we have discussed. In case of any query, send that to me. I'll be addressing that in the next module. Take care of yourself and stay safe. Thank you.